And welcome back to a special edition of the Pitch Putt and Puff podcast. Going to give you a little special episode here today, a little bonus episode. But before we get cooking with that, let me get a little shout out to a couple sponsors here. First, we're going to give a shout out to golfercbd.com. Golfercbd.com. Check them out. Use promo code PPP at checkout. PPP10 to save yourself 10% at checkout. These guys have a bunch of different options in the CBD world. They have the gummies. Hank and Steve, big fan of the gummies out there in the golf course. Find a little extra focus out there, taking away any lingering pain, stuff like that. I'm a big fan of the topicals. They have the recovery cream, the performance cream, as well as the performance spray. I've been using the recovery cream here pretty heavy. It's actually right here next to me. So go and check out the Golfer CBD topicals. They're truly a game changer with their patented delivery technology. They're strokes ahead of the competition, delivering 10 times more CBD directly to the muscles and joints than any traditional balms or creams. The Golfer CBD topicals are easy to apply on the course, absorb quickly, and do not leave any sticky residue, making them a perfect tool for every golfer's essential toolkit. Make sure you throw some of this recovery cream or performance cream right in the bag. Really is truly a game changer out there on the golf course. Also, we got to give a shout out to 420 Bliss, located at 740 Hoosick Road in Troy, New York, right up in the Walmart Plaza. Stop in there, check them out. Everything you're looking for: flowers, pre-rolls, edibles, vapes, tinctures, you name it, they got it. Make sure if you do stop in there, you check out Jaunty. They have some great products. They have the all-in-one vapes. They have they have some edibles here. The Mango Sunrise is one of their new flavors here, as well as the all-in-one cartridges. This one here I have is the banana. Let me tell you right now, flavor lights out. So definitely go stop in 420 Bliss and grab yourself a nice Jaunty product over there. Last but not least, we got Trouble Off the Tee, TroubleOffTheTee.com, promo code RGB. We'll get you 15% off at checkout, as well as promo code PUFF to buy one, get one free on the polo. So make sure you take advantage of that. And while you're over there, make sure you take a second and check out the Audible book, authored Marty Minden, narrated by Jake Adams from Country Club Adjacent. Go and give that a listen as well. And then I also have to give a shout out here, 52 Sundays. 52 Sundays has been a big supporter of the Legends Golf Club, as well as the Pitch Putt Puff podcast. So let me give you guys a little special promo code here, LGC15, LGC15, to save yourself 15% over at 52sundays.co. Carlos and Hector, man, they're on the grind over there. Those guys are doing big things. So go and check out 52sundays.co. Promo code LGC15. This episode I'm really excited about. This guy knows it's different. We're not going down the cannabis road here today. We're going a little bit different. It's been kind of a topic in the golf world as of recently. I'm pretty much going to sit back and listen for the majority of this episode because I'm really interested in what our guest has to say. So stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get right into it with our guest. And welcome back to the Pitch Putt and Puff podcast. I'd like to introduce a special guest here. We got Adam Schell, the owner of Brain Supreme. What's up, Adam? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Roger. Good to be here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I listened to you on Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli and XG and the crew. XG actually linked us up, so shout out to XG for that.
Yes, thank you.
For the people who didn't listen to that podcast, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what Brain Supreme is really all about?
Right. So I own a microdosing brand called Brain Supreme, and I'm also a microdose coach. I was a Big Ten linebacker, college football player, and then had some injuries, got into yoga, did some writing. I was a filmmaker, and then through kind of a crazy way, got into the cannabis industry, did quite well for a number of years during the kind of boom years in California. But the whole time I was a little more interested in psychedelics, particularly psychedelics as like the ultimate form of supplementation, life optimization, and so forth. And spent a number of years developing strains of mushrooms, really kind of worked with a science partner that I have, who's an extraordinary mushroom grower. When I was kind of smashing it in the cannabis days, I funded him out to grow, and we developed a mushroom grow. And then from there, we started really working on how can we blend this really unique form of fungi with different herbs, nootropics, amino acids to create what we feel is the ultimate form of supplementation. And so that's the genesis of Brain Supreme. And then over the course of that time, I've had, there's better mushroom science minds, lots of them for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think anybody in the country has had as many conversations about microdosing as I have. So over the course of this 6-7 years of developing this brand and in getting into the space, I've hand sold, over half of the 6,000 or 7,000 units that we've sold during this time. So I've developed a real expertise in microdose coaching and how to approach microdosing and how to kind of customize it and personalize it. So it really is the kind of ultimate form of supplementation for yourself.
Gotcha. So, like, especially nowadays, like in the golf world, there was actually just an article not too long ago in the Golf Week magazine about microdosing. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Microdosing and the effects on the course and this and that. So it's kind of something that's getting big in the golf side of things as well, which is different to see.
Well, I'll play golf occasionally. In fact, the funny thing is I was just on vacation in New York, and when I was first talking to you,
yeah,
I'm like, I don't play golf much, but I was back at Wyndham visiting my dad, and I played this mountain course called Christmas. And you're like, wait, I live in Albany. I'm playing Christmas on Saturday. So
yeah.
I play golf. I play golf very occasionally, but golf is a sport, and I'm still a mountain biker. I taught yoga for years. I'm very into fitness. I train very hard. Microdosing helps with flow state. It helps you enter into flow state, which is that, revered psychological, physical disposition that people get in when they completely enmesh with the activity and endeavors that they're going for. Everybody talks about Michael Jordan, how he'd get in this kind of flow state. So microdosing really facilitates that neurological pathways and connections. So when you're participating in an action, particularly one that you love, like sport, you really do enter flow state. So it's very common. I've had a number of professional athletes who all talk about that. And I've even developed a protocol, which we can get into later, called performance dosing, which is all about, peak performance, peak day, flow state, athletic endeavoring.
Huh. Okay. So do you feel like with your athletic background and the specific athletic side of what you're trying to, like, for the focus side of it, is kind of helped you go that way with the product?
Yeah, 100%. So I realized pretty shortly on, I wasn't when we developed. So when we developed the product, I'm 54 now, and I was getting kind of close to 50, and I had just face planted in the cannabis industry hard, man. Like,
okay.
I got out of my lane. I was big in distribution. We were doing great, and I bought farms, and the market really started to crash, and bought into big farms, big groups with lots of Northern California farms. And first year we had fires and we got smoke damage. And if anybody knows kind of the weed game, as I'm sure your listeners do,
sure.
That 3 weeks before harvest is a really sensitive time, because when those trichomes, those sticky hairs on those high times photos, like a few weeks before product, when that bud on the vine just looks like on the plant looks amazing, those trichomes, that's what contains a lot of the THC, but also contains the terpenes that are the elements of smell. And if there's smoke in the air, and if smoke attaches to those sticky trichomes, you're done. Like, your weed's going to be in a competitive market in California, like it was getting, like, you're going to be done. So the first year we had all the smoke damage, lost all the weed. Then it was a lot of good money after bad, because there's no crop insurance. And then the next year, literally from the day before harvest all the way through to harvest, we had 11 days of continuous rain and 13 inches of rain. So we almost 54,000 pounds molded out. It was just, and then I was ruined. So, but I had been developing this kind of, Brain Supreme microdosing supplement line. And I was really looking for like a middle-aged hack, because I was just about to be 50 years old, and I was 263 pounds. I had just lost everything I'd worked for years. I went from, really doing quite well to being way down, like everything down, lawsuits, everything was in shambles. You lose, do the math on it,
Right.
54,000 pounds at $700 a pound.
Yeah.
Geez,
Like,
it was bad,
That's crazy.
So, I was first developing Brain Supreme as this kind of, I needed a hack. I didn't want to go like heavy into steroids or, some of this other kind of crazy shit. And when we first developed the formula that's now genius, I was driving our distro van in Northern California. It literally felt my brain go thunk, like, kind of felt it elevate, and I felt this new level of neurocognition. I wasn't shroomy, I wasn't stoned. I just felt like, oh God, this is how I'm meant to be. It's like all of a sudden, like you drank water with minerals, and like the cramping and shitty feeling in your joints went away, and you're like, God, like you don't necessarily feel extraordinary. You just feel like normal, but that normal in relationship to the way you usually feel is kind of extraordinary.
Right.
And it was the most sensational drive up the one freeway, and just the clouds and the road and the clarity of my thoughts. It was amazing. So I was like, hey, we're really onto something here. And then as I started to get fit again and get control back of my life after being completely out of control during these 2 years as the industry was collapsing and everything was going wrong, I started to train really hard again. And I noticed that during my training, whether it was a mountain bike ride or Peloton ride or just weights, I was in a state. I was in a state that I hadn't been in since I played college football.
Mm-hmm.
High school football, I was a Big Ten linebacker. Since I played college football, where I just was relishing my workouts. Doing the extra reps felt great. The deep breathing, the dopamine release just seemed to be heightened and accelerated. And like, once again, it's not high or shroomy. It's just this new normal that is, it's somewhat difficult to explain. It's like, you feel like you're almost back home. Like, oh, this is the person I'm meant to be. This is the energy level and clarity of thought and focus that I'm meant to have. So it doesn't matter whether it's a golf game, a tennis game, or just, somebody who likes to hit the gym hard a couple times a week. Like it definitely puts you in a elevated state of consciousness. And part of what happens is that psilocybin is an extraordinary anti-inflammatory. So there's several things that are happening when you take psilocybin, particularly when you do what we've done and you combine psilocybin with herbs, nootropics, and amino acids that are meant. So we have 4 formulas. We've got our Genius, which is our flagship, and Genius basically takes. We've got. Oh, you got it. Great.
Yeah, I got some right here. Yep.
Oh, thank you. So Genius takes 100 milligrams of our active ingredient and blends it with nootropics, which are herbs and amino acids that are formed for neurocognition. So that's our most nootropic formulation. Then we have Feel Good, which is our Feel Good is kind of our emotional formula. There we go. And this is blended with amino acids and herbs and nutrients that are meant for like the heart, libido, emotional well-being. Then we developed a formula recently called Athlete. It used to be called Brains and Balls. Now we call it Athlete. I love the name Brains and Balls, but we sell in some clinics around the country, and it was a little off-putting for women, and it's a great product for women as well. And we blend 100 milligrams of active with our kind of performance blend, natural T boosters, herbs and amino acids that help with performance. And then we have Black Stack, and Black Stack is our extra strength formula for people who need a little bit of a stronger dose. This is 250 milligrams of active that we blend with really high quality vitamin C, and then nanocurcumin and ginger. So I was answering something specific. So what happens with this flow state with athletics is that psilocybin helps with neuroregenesis, so that like areas of your brain that might have gotten damaged, contact sports, trauma, head issues, concussions, it helps regenerate the neural pathways in that area that might have been injured. Then it forms new neural pathways that basically move you in. They don't quite know why this happens, but psilocybin moves the brain and these neural pathways in a beneficial direction. So you become naturally happier, naturally more tuned in, naturally more productive. It just takes you to a higher operational kind of level. And then the other thing that happens, it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory. And this hasn't been studied much, but this is kind of my theory of why this flow state, like why your golf game might have been better and why your energy levels might have increased, is we carry inflammation in our brain, we carry inflammation around our eyes. But psilocybin has this way of reducing inflammation in the brain, and also ocular inflammation around the eye. So when people talk about the visual acuity that they experience when they're doing a more recreational dose or a heavy duty psychedelic trip, some of that is because the inflammation around the eye is reducing so you can see better. The inflammation in the inner ear is reducing so you can hear better. So as an athlete, that subtle reduction of inflammation around the eye and around the ear, you're reacting 1%, 2%, 3% better, which is an
Yeah.
enormous amount.
Absolutely.
So it really can be a strategic athletic advantage because of these very specific anti-inflammatory properties that psilocybin has, and then we combine it with the other herbs and nootropics. So that's part of what happens, is that your eyesight and your hearing improve and your reaction time improve. So it naturally boosts your athletic performance up.
That makes perfect. That makes perfect sense too, because like the pressure with like your focus point at just at that point with the visual. Now, one question I have for you with the Genius, I noticed it's the only one that says take on an empty stomach. Why do you say that on the, just out of curiosity on my end?
So there are certain supplements that are water soluble and certain supplements that are fat soluble. Fat soluble supplements is the majority of them, and they're better taken with food. Mushrooms are water soluble supplements, and they're better taken on an empty stomach, and then they can absorb better. Now, the other thing that happens specifically with psilocybin is psilocybin, you ingest psilocybin, it hits your liver, it converts to something called psilocin, and then psilocin hits your brain and is absorbed by the psilocin receptors. That process of absorption and conversion is quicker and more effective and less obstructed if you're on an empty stomach. It also helps with a little bit of lemon, citric acid. So like doing your microdose with a glass of lemon water in the morning is very effective. So that's why you want to do on an empty stomach. It just helps with the absorption and conversion from psilocybin to psilocin that your brain absorbs.
Gotcha. So what I love about this, honestly, is like people can know. So I have a good friend of mine. He microdoses a lot. But I feel like sometimes he might do a little bit more than a microdose kind of thing. But now, like with the capsules you guys offer, it's more of a controllable microdose. He knows what he's getting, opposed to like, oh, I'm going to take this cap and maybe this little piece of a stem, and off he goes kind of thing. And hopes for the best, where at least you know what you're getting and you can gauge what your levels are. Like I feel like he'd be the type of guy who would be going with the black stack just because of his levels currently.
Well, I mean that's one thing, an advantage to a product like ours, is there's a consistency of dosage. But the other thing is, mushrooms they're alive, and I believe that they are sentient to a certain degree. So they even product to product. I mean, our product is remarkably consistent, but even so, there can be variations because there can be an energy in the room, an energy in the environment, an energy in the grow medium, an energy in the soil. There's lots of things that I believe they pick up on. That's one of the things that that's kind of so interesting about the time we live in, is how much we're learning about plants, of how much more sentient plants are. That plants are, they're more complex than we think, and they're more complex than we can think. Their level of complexity and understanding of life. So we have a remarkably consistent product, but there's always might be a little variance because we grow a new batch of mushrooms every 3 weeks. We're pulling a harvest, and so there's some slight variation. Very consistent, but always slight variation. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially with a small company, a small product, because it shows that they're producing constantly, so the inventory is fresh, and that they're dealing with something that has, pardon the pun, but slightly kind of magical properties to it. And there's always going to be a little variance in that. There's also variance in your mood that day. There's variance in where your own chemical levels are at. There's variance in where your, magnesium and potassium and salt levels are at. I've learned so much about brain anatomy in this process of microdosing, developing the brand, and then all the coaching that I've done. I've had at least 2,500 conversations with my clients and customers on how they're microdosing, how to go about it, how to problem solve. And psilocybin can really indicate some deficiencies, particularly neurological deficiencies, dehydration and mineral imbalance. Almost always people who are not having a great reaction to microdosing, if the outlier is if you're on an antidepressant like an SSRI or an SNRI. Over long-term time, those types of antidepressants can block the psilocin receptors in the brain. And I've found it's not always the case, but if you've been on an antidepressant for a couple of years, you got a 50-50 chance that psilocybin might not be effective for you. It's not always the case, and the only way you can find out is if you try it. Now, it's still beneficial in terms of being an anti-inflammatory, but in terms of the mild psychedelic properties or stronger psychedelic properties, if you're doing a larger dose, you might not be able to experience those. You won't know until you try, but there's still some other benefits. And it's also very possible to do it responsibly and under some real direction or some real personal course of study that you can scale down your antidepressant and replace with microdosing. I've seen that done dozens and dozens of times successfully. But I really want to say this with great humility and respect. Like, you got to be real honest with yourself. What are you dealing with? How's your mental state? Are you getting some coaching? Have you done your research? Is there a doctor, medical practitioner in some way that could support you on this, that understands what you're trying to do and is kind of hip enough and cool enough to understand that psilocybin and psychedelic can be used effectively to help you scale off your antidepressants. So that's a sensitive subject, but it's an important one these days. I think we had 78 million antidepressant prescriptions written last year. So it's an extraordinary amount of Americans are on antidepressants.
It's crazy to see, man. Like, just the whole pills in general, the antidepressants. Like, I feel like nowadays someone goes through like a breakup or something, a tragedy or something like that, the first thing they want to do is, you got to get on some antidepressants. No, why don't you got to get through it one way or the other. But I don't always think the antidepressants are, sometimes, yeah, sure, they might be the answer, but I think the most we can limit the pharmaceutical stuff side of things, it's just more natural for us at that point.
There's so much interesting study and that's happening here. Gary Brecka, Brecka, he's a human biologist. He's the co-founder and co-owner of 10X Health. He's the guy that got famous. A lot of your listeners will know. He's the one that got Dana White healthy and in shape.
Is he the one that gave him the lifeline? Okay.
Yeah. And he's got a terrific company called 10X. And he has a lecture out there that relates mental disorders, mental diseases, depression, anxiety to chemical imbalances in the brain, like legit mineral imbalances in the brain. And one of the things that's been interesting with developing Brain Supreme is how much the product's effectiveness seems to go hand in hand with neurological wellness. Like, those customers and clients who follow a pretty good diet, have very limited pharmaceutical drugs that they're currently using or have used in their past, like, very responsive to macro dosing and micro dosing. The more neurotoxic you are, the harder it can be to have the response to the psychedelics, particularly at the micro dosing level. So that, that's very interesting. And I've developed over the time, like a protocol of certain foods that you shouldn't eat, certain foods you should eat, times that you should eat them, and supplements that you can take in combination, in conjunction with microdosing, that can help kind of punch through for some of those difficult cases and so forth. A lot of it has to deal with minerals, proper mineralization, magnesium and so forth before bed, and then during the day, quality salts, electrolytes and so forth, and then getting rid of most kind of processed carbohydrates and simple shitty sugars and so forth. Lousy vegetable oils, which contain something called linoleic acid, and then grain products, which contain sadly, unfortunately, high amounts of glyphosate pesticide, which is it's my dog, Monsanto's Roundup Ready. Those are all neurotoxic. So if you start to get those out of the brain, you got proper mineralization, you're drinking good water. Filtering for fluoride is really important. I mean, filtering your water and then getting an additional fluoride filter is really important. Fluoride calcifies the pineal gland, and the pineal gland is our God gland, our spiritual gland at our kind of crown of our head. It's what's very active in children from birth through 7. It helps them assimilate and understand language and emotions and so forth. Then it starts to go dormant and shut down. People who have a prayer practice, meditation practice, and good nutritional habits, they can keep their pineal gland really upregulated, open, and active, and that helps with a sense of emotional well-being, like throughout the course of their life and so forth. And psilocybin microdosing, when combined with some prayer and meditation, like, you can literally start to notice your pineal gland reactivate. And that, my thinking is that this hasn't been studied yet. There's been a lot of studies about showing how the brain lights up on psilocybin, but my feeling is that that kind of burst of neuroplasticity and energy in the brain helps to stimulate the pineal gland, and that's what helps move us when we microdose to kind of a place of our homeostasis, like our normalcy is upregulated to a place of greater happiness. I think it's because psilocybin helps stimulate the pineal gland and decalcify the pineal gland. And then if you can combine your microdosing with like a prayer and meditation practice, some breath work each day, then you can really start to lower anxiety and increase brain health and a sense of emotional well-being. They all go hand in hand and they work together.
So, like, how long into the process did you start to, like, was it an instant thing for you when you started doing the like a microdose? Should it be like a daily thing? Is it like every couple of days type thing? Like,
okay, so let's go through. So I'm going to kind of give you the brain supreme spiel. So to answer your question, microdosing was when we first started experimenting and developing, before we had a brand, and it was just myself and my partner, and we were tinkering. It was mildly effective, but when we developed the Genius formula, it was profoundly effective. I was at my lowest when we finally developed it, and it really helped accelerate and get me through that terrible time in my life. I was able to operate on 3 or 4 hours sleep. I was able to compartmentalize the stress. I mean, I got a wife and kids, and you can't let them know, like, hey, babe, we just lost everything. The kids, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids, they can't know this, So what a dad has to go through, could also be a mom, what a parent has to go through in compartmentalizing their emotions so they can create the air of normalcy for their children is pretty extraordinary. And so my experience with microdosing, when we really perfected Genius, it was profound, and it helped me immeasurably. I'm not really one who's prone to like drugs and alcohol and addiction, but I was I was definitely at my lowest point. I was heaviest. I'll eat a lot when I'm unhappy. And it got me focused up. I was able to shift my life. We left California, picked up in another state, started over again, got the family back in a decent position and on our feet. So it was profound for me. When we got the formulas right. So, okay, let me do the spiel on how to microdose. So the first way to approach
for me, I'm maybe done shrooms prior to this past weekend when I did my first microdose, maybe 3 times in my whole life. And like, one time it was a good environment. One time I tried to go to a comedy show. It really wasn't a good environment to be in. So, I didn't really pick my place as well. But this weekend for me, I mean, we'll talk about in a few minutes, was an experience. But I'd love to like just start for someone who knows nothing about it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So the first thing is let's set the expectation. So if somebody's done a heroic dose, a therapeutic dose, trip balls, whatever you want to call it, just to set the understanding, these days with mushrooms being a little stronger, historically the heroic dose was 5 grams or 5,000 milligrams, okay? Nowadays, just because mushrooms are stronger, let's call that 3.5 grams, which correlates to 3,500 milligrams. So 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. Okay. So microdosing happens at the 10% and below level of the macro dose. So if a macro dose is 3,500 milligrams, a microdose is 400 milligrams to 100 milligrams. So you're not really in the psychedelic range there. So just to set the expectation, like, don't go buying a pack of Brain Supreme and then writing me, it's like, I took 2 capsules and like I didn't experience anything. I mean, right. But I felt a little bit better. I'm like, yeah, that's That's what it is,
Right.
Microdosing is an expensive supplement that works. Like I'm a health and fitness guy. I've got functional MDs and integrative MDs and wellness clinics and acupuncturists and spend a lot of money on supplements. And, my feeling with supplements is I do a lot of them. And it's always like, I hope they work. I think they work. Everybody else got sick. I didn't get that sick. For my age, I'm doing well. But you add a little bit of psilocybin to your supplementation, you're like, oh, I know what I'm paying for, 5%, 10%, 20% better, so the expectation of microdosing is that it's a slightly expensive supplement that you notice.
Okay.
So you have realistic expectations. What you're going for ideally is a 5, 10, 15, maybe 20% improvement in overall efficacy. Some area of your life, you're going to feel some noticeable percentage better. It can be in something positive, like, hey, I love my workout. I was feeling great. I'm so much more patient at work. Or it can be in a reduction of negative affect. And sometimes that's harder to discern. So for instance, I had a veteran client of mine she's like, I think it's working. My PTSD is not quite as bad, but I really don't know. And I was like, all right, hang in there. Just stay with the supplement protocol, which I'll go into in a second, and finish your pack and to get to your week off, because you do 5 days on, 2 days off. You finish a pack, 25, 30 days, and you take a week off. So she gets to her week off, and she calls me, it's day 4 of her week off. She's like, oh my God, I get it. I'm like, what? She's like, all the voices came back. Like I tried to go to bed, and I didn't even realize that the voices in my head were just subtly reducing. So I'm 4 days into Brain Supreme, and I'm sleeping great. But it was just the new normal. She's like, I didn't realize, because it wasn't something appreciable and positive. It was a reduction in the negative. And so she realized on day 4 that those voices just got quiet when she was microdosing. So just to set like a set of realistic expectations, like high functioning, well-adjusted adults, probably like yourself, probably like most of your audience, you're going to get 5, 10, maybe 15, 20% bump in your overall efficacy and performance. Some of my clients who are veterans, seen some heavy duty action in military combat, or come from really traumatic upbringing, rough childhood and experiences, they'll often tell me they're 50, 60, 70% better. They stop having suicide ideation. They stop having night terrors. I've heard that a lot. They stop having a lot of anxiety decreases, like really noticeable. But for the most part, set the expectation that microdosing is going to give you about a 10% bump in your overall efficacy and how well you're doing. I always tell people with microdosing is you want to demystify, then you want to familiarize, and then you want to personalize. That's the process. Demystify, familiarize, personalize. So the supplement protocol is how I like everybody to begin. You're going to take 1 capsule in the morning on an empty stomach with a glass of lemon water. You're going to do it 5 days in a row, and then you're going to take 2 days off. Okay? Pretty consistently sometime in the morning. You're going to scale up your dosage. You're going to start with 1 capsule. And if you have a lot of anxiety, open a capsule up and start with half a capsule. Okay? That's 50 milligrams of active ingredient. It is wildly unlikely that you're going to even notice that and that you're going to have any kind of psychoactive experience. If you have further level of anxiety, start on an off day. Start on a weekend. You don't need to start on a Monday. I like to microdose Monday through Friday because it helps me power through weeks with kids and wife and sports. And both my boys are super athletes, so we go from one's got practice at 7 in the morning or special training at 5 in the morning sometimes, and then the one's got practice at across town at until 10 o'clock at night. So I need the bump during the week. So 5 days on, 2 days off. Start with 1 capsule in the morning on an empty stomach with a glass of lemon water. And then you scale your dosage up until you get to what we call defining your sweet spot. Sweet spot is perceptible, non-intoxicating, non-hallucinatory. You want to perceive the supplements, even if it's very subtle. You know what? I think I was a little sharper, or like I just felt like crisper in my vision, my sight. I was more patient, like some appreciable level of improvement. That's your sweet spot, okay? And then for the first month, at least 2 weeks, just treat it as a supplement. 5 days on, 2 days off. Scale your dosage up until you find your sweet spot. For most people, that's 2 to maybe 3 capsules or 200 to 300 milligrams of active ingredient, but it's subjective. Everybody's different, okay? And you don't have to be at 3. actually it's expensive. So if you're performing well on one capsule, great, man. You're going to get 60 days out of a pack as opposed to 30 or 20, right? So it lasts longer. So you don't have to push your dose up to prove everything, right? You want to take as little as you can and have it be as effective as you can. The other thing that you can do during the week is, because you will acclimate, is you can scale upwards over the course of the week. So you can do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the first 3 days on one capsule, Thursday, Friday on two capsules, take the weekend off. Okay. So now you're going through, you've demystified, you do it, on an off day, there's no anxiety. All right. You got no pressure. You start with half a capsule, just demystify, limp it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're familiarizing, 5 days on, 2 days off. One's good. One's really good for days 1, 2, and 3. And then I go to 2 capsules on days 4 and 5. Or you start with 2, you scale to 3. When I'm doing the supplement protocol, now I've been microdosing quite a bit and I've acclimated. I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on 2, Thursday, Friday on 3, take the weekend off. Okay. So that's the supplement protocol. Now, there are no known counterindications with psilocybin for any known medications or medical conditions. In my experience, if you have seizures, don't do psilocybin, or do it under the supervision of a naturopathic doctor who's going to support you and test it out. Mm-hmm. It's wildly rare, but sometimes, in some instances, psilocybin can trigger seizures in certain people. Other cases, it's improved seizures. So that's the one thing I like to say as a caveat. If you suffer from seizures, give this a lot of thought, research it, make sure you're comfortable. Don't just rush into it, because there have been occasions where psilocybin has triggered seizures. Not really at the microdosing level if it's known, but it can potentially. So let's be aware of that. If you're on an antidepressant, the worst thing that can happen is you just might have wasted your money, okay? It's not going to counteraindicate. It's not going to get you more depressed or anything like that. If anything, it might help get you a little happier. There's no medical counterindications. There's no conditional counterindications. The only thing I might say, and there still needs to be more research, is the thing with seizures. Now, the only thing as a microdose coach that I found is sometimes in the first 3 days of microdosing, people get a little sleepy within the first 2 hours of taking their microdose. And there's 2 reasons why this is happening. Your brain is your biggest burner of calories in your body. Your brain consumes more energy than the rest of your body, unless you're in running a marathon or something. Your brain uses the most energy. And when you microdose for those first few times, new neural pathways are lighting up. And old neural pathways that have gotten damaged or maybe getting affected, they are getting regenerated. And that takes energy. And so the extra energy going to your brain might make you a little sleepy. Now, there's something that I call, you're going to like this as a golfer, the front 9 and the back 9. Okay. Sometimes in microdosing, the front 9 can maybe cause, and this is really outliers, but I'm just going through every counterindication, can maybe be a little bit peaky, a little bit of anxiety, or get you sleepy. If any of those things happen, 2-3 hours later, the back 9 is still going to get really sweet. The back 9 is going to even out. You're going to feel increased energy, increased focus, and that feeling might last 3 days. So the most common, I don't want to say side effect, because it can still be very possible, but positive day and positive experience. The most, if I have 100 clients, it might happen in 3 of them. They get a little sleepy the first 3 days of microdosing. And the 2 things that are happening is the brain's getting fired up, and that's fatiguing you. The other thing is it can be an indication that you might be a little dehydrated and you might be deficient in electrolytes and minerals. So, and I'm literally batting 100% with this one. And I'm telling 50, 60 clients. It's not like I'm not like a miracle worker. Add some good quality salt to your diet. In the morning, when you do your microdose with your lemon water, take a pinch of Celtic salt or Baja Gold, real high quality sea salt, under the tongue, good pinch, and drink your lemon water, and then let all those 92 minerals that are in Celtic salt and Baja salt flush through your body. And that will help to defend against the feeling of fatigue and energize the brain. And then you can add a high quality sports mineral like LMNT. I get a product that my kids like off Amazon called Zeal Naturals, which has very high quality salts, vitamin B, some amino acids. It's a really good sports nutrient. Change your salt, so you're using high quality salts in your diet, and then take some magnesium before bed. And that almost always, after a few days of doing that, the the fatigue that you were feeling in the first 2 hours of microdosing goes away. So those are the only kind of counterindications that I want to let people know. Start with the supplemental protocol. Approach it like a supplement, 5 days on, 2 days off, scale up till you find your sweet spot. The next level that I really am a huge fan of, and your golfers, your audience, so genius, athlete and genius. This is performance dosing, okay? So when you have demystified and then familiarized yourself, now you want to start personalize the process of microdosing, because there's no like hard science really on this yet. This is an emerging field, and you can do what works with you. Microdosing is neuroactivating, so it's usually better taken in the front part of the day, because if you take it too much at night, it can keep your brain a little fired up. And it's not a stimulant like the way caffeine is, but your brain is still going to be active when you want to wind down and go to bed. You're still going to be thinking and writing and wanting to be a little more engaged in the world. You're not shutting down. So microdosing for most people is better in the first part of the day. Some people like to split their microdose up. They like to take one at 8 a.m. and take a second one at 1 p.m. because then they don't go for the afternoon coffee. So you can personalize the process. For me, the most profound form of personalization is this performance dosing. So what I'm doing right now is my 2 hardest training days, which tend to be Monday and Thursday. I'll take 2 athlete and 2 genius. That's a 400 milligram microdose, which is on the higher side of a microdose. Mm-hmm. I will do that about 35 minutes before I hit the gym. And I'll do it with coffee with fat. If you go to the website, we have the new Brain Supreme coffee recipe. So what we do there is we take high quality coffee, or you could do a chai tea, whatever, if you're not a coffee person, and you want to add quality fats, like it's a variation of a bulletproof coffee. So I'm a big raw milk, raw dairy guy, so I get raw cream, or at least good organic cream. I don't like MCT oil. I like to use coconut oil. MCT oil on an empty stomach in the morning upsets my stomach. Coconut oil feels great. So I'll do about an ounce of cream. I'll do about big coffee. I do 1 big coffee. So let's say I got like 14 ounces of coffee. I'm going to do about 2 ounces of cream. I'm going to do about a teaspoon of coconut oil and a teaspoon of grass-fed butter. I'm going to do the scooper, 2.5 grams of Ceylon cinnamon. And I go heavy on cinnamon. So if you go, you can use any type of cinnamon, but if you go heavy on cinnamon, you want to use Ceylon, Ceylon. It's called the true cinnamon. It's the best flavor. It's not necessarily more expensive, but it's lower in a chemical called curamine. So if you're doing heavy loads of cinnamon like I do, you don't want to have that much curamine, and Ceylon is the lowest in curamine, and I think the best in the flavor. So 2.5 grams of Ceylon cinnamon, about 5 grams of creatine monohydrate, great for the brain, great for building muscle. And then I'll add also there's a product called Om Master Blend, which is 10 adaptogenic mushrooms and ashwagandha. I'll put a scoop of that in my coffee. I blend it all up. I take my microdose, and then I take some high quality omega-3s. I use a company right now I think it's called Life Extension, but there's lots of good omega-3s. Mm-hmm. That is a high performance recipe for your brain and for your energy. Like the caffeine hits the brain, but when it hits with the fat, it's much smoother and you don't get the crash. Okay. Oh, I use a little raw honey in there as well. I like sweet. I admit it. Yeah. So if you like sweet, you can use some raw honey, some grade B maple syrup. There's a product called Lancanto, which is monk fruit and erythritol, which is the sugar alcohol. And I don't know, man. I want to love it, but I have just some intuitive reservations about the sugar alcohols. I've gone back to just using really high quality honey, local honey, raw honey, because you get the pollens from the environment, which helps with allergies and other things like that. Yeah. So that's the recipe's on the website. It's a free download and a video. But so I take 2 athlete, 2 genius, 35 minutes before the gym with my bulletproof coffee. And then because it's a stronger microdose, I'm burning off the more powerful aspects of the microdose in that hour-long workout. And then the benefits linger through the day, and then the next 2 days, and then I do it again on Thursday, or I do it on Friday, something like that. So if you were a golfer, or I've got some professional athletes, some amateur athletes, and what they do is they do their performance dose on 1 training day a week, and then they do it on game day. But you got to work it. Don't just listen to this, some asshole who's been microdosing for, 7 years now and jump into 4 capsules. Right, you would start with maybe, 200 milligrams of active, 1 capsule of each, but scale upwards it's once again that familiarization process. Familiarize, personalize it, and you'll find out what your level is. But the performance dosing is going to be a little slightly of a higher dose, and it's going to be coupled with exercise. So we've got supplemental dosing. That's how you begin. Then we have performance dosing, which is great for athletes or just anybody in general who kind of wants to get really notice their microdose on their microdosing days. If you're amateur or professional athlete, it's a great thing to do. One practice as you're going out for golf and then your main golf day on Saturday or Sunday. But you don't want to abuse that because you will acclimate to microdosing. And
Right.
Look, this is from a guy who owns a brand. And of course, I want to sell a shit ton of product and so forth. But I want it done right and I want it done well. And you will acclimate to microdosing. So if you're doing the performance dosing, follow that protocol. You're not going to be able to performance dose every day. It's going to have diminishing effect. But if you can keep it sacred in your life and really just do it the 2 days a week or 1 day on, 2 or 3 days off, however that works out, it will be very special and it will be a real natural performance booster for you. And then the third way that you can microdose is what I call peak day microdosing. So let's say you've been microdosing for a while. It's done the work that you maybe wanted it to do. Your life's in a really good spot. And if you're being completely honest with yourself, you're like, I don't know if I need to do this every day. It's expensive and I want to notice it more. Then you can do peak day dosing where, if Friday you have your big, group conference call meeting and you got to be on point and then, you hit your workout before or after, you could do it once a week. You could do it once a month. You can do kind of this peak day dosing. And that's usually going to be a slightly higher dose. Not quite as high as a performance dose, maybe because you're dosing in irregularly, but you're just using it on occasion when you want to notice it, when you want to peak. Now, the amazing thing about psilocybin is it will tell you, there's a level of, and I've heard this hundreds of times, and I'm even talking against my own ends here, my own, because it's gonna diminish a little bit how much product I might sell. But the mushrooms are going to tell you when you're ready to take a break. And they're also going to tell you that don't even take your 2 days off. You got to keep going. There's some work that needs to be done. There's some sadness. There's some trauma. There's something that's getting worked on right now. And you don't have to take 2 days off. It's best if you go 5 days on, 2 days off. But if you're feeling the wisdom of the mushrooms speaking to you in a way where they're saying, stay the course, this is helping you, do that. You can take it for 30 days in a row and then suddenly, it worked.
Right.
That thing that's been bothering me forever, it's not bothering me as much. And you'll take 10 days off. You'll take a month off. You might take a year off. When you start microdosing, there's a wisdom that I think the mushrooms communicate with you and your own intuition wakes up. I relate this to, have you seen Fantastic Fungi, the Amazon Netflix documentary about the life and work of Paul Stamets?
I did not, no.
Okay. Now, this is Paul Stamets before he became a, I love Fauci, idiot,
okay. Yep.
Unfortunately. So
yep.
I'm deeply saddened and affected by that. If some of your listeners know what I'm talking about, is that Paul Stamets is he's an extraordinary mind. He's one of the world's leading mushroom experts. He's done incredible good. But suddenly, as has happened with so many of these kind of old hippies, is he just, Trump derangement syndrome played into pro-pharma attitudes and pro-vaccine attitudes that make no sense. And so now he's developing mushrooms that can help reduce vaccine hesitancy, which is completely deranged to me. And his last appearance on Joe Rogan, the first 40 minutes, literally broke my heart, blew my mind and broke my heart. He's talking about how they can develop certain types of mushrooms to reduce vaccine reaction. And Rogan's like, well, if you're doing the mushrooms, do you even need the vaccine? And
right.
It was a Manchurian Candidate moment, dude. It
was
so weird.
I did see that clip. I know you're talking. I did see that Rogan clip.
Fucking heartbreaking. So, just so people understand who and what I'm about, this is Paul Stamets before COVID, before the world got ruined, and we have this binary view of life, that's happened since then.
So true.
What happens? What Fantastic Fungi, which is a beautiful film, is about. It's all this capture motion photography with these mushrooms just bursting out of the forest floors. It's fantastic. But one of the things that it relates is how the mycelial networks, the root fibers of the mushrooms, relay the information of the forest between the trees and can communicate all types of very sophisticated data about nutrients and health and invasive species, fires. Everything that's going on in the forest can be translated through these mycelial networks. I found over these 6 or 7 years of microdosing, there's something that I call the etheric mycelial network, which is from my heart and kind of from my, pituitary area there, fibers go out. And I have developed kind of these empathetic capacities to deepen my relationship to nature and my fellow human beings. So I know when to give, I know when to receive, and then I know when I'm not being received at all, and to just back it off. So there is a cumulative benefit to microdosing in terms of a deepening of your intuition and your empathy and your connection to the people that you're closest with in your life, and literally everybody. That is like a really nice long-term benefit, subtle but very powerful long-term benefit of microdosing. And I call it the etheric mycelial network. This network that extends out from me to every kind of living being. And I know, it flows like how I'm supposed to be engaging, interacting with them.
The vibe, just a different vibe. You feel a different vibe, basically.
Yes.
And that's kind of like what I was saying earlier. I did the performance dose this weekend on the golf course.
Well, I told you to, because I wanted to have that conversation, because I thought with your golfers and everything, it might be.
Yep.
So
a couple of my friends are like, you're doing that? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm going to try this out just to see what it's all about. I did not play the best, but there's a couple of factors that could have went into that, because I can't get off the tee to save my life. But that's a whole different story. I don't think anything's going to fix that right now. But
what was your enjoyment level like? How was the day for you?
So I scored one of the worst rounds of my life, and we're on the 12th hole, and I don't think it had anything to do with the microdose at all. It was just a really bad day on the course. But we're on the 12th hole, and I was playing with one of my buddies I haven't played with all year. And we're in the group, and I was having a great time. And I was like, yo, you guys would never know. Like, because some guys get pissed off out there. We got a couple of bucks on the line and this and that. I was like, you guys would never know I'm playing the worst round of the year right now, would you? My buddy Jay, my regular co-host, is like, no, man. He goes, why? Where are you at right now? I'm like, I don't know, bro. I'm on pace to shoot like 100. He's like, what? And I'm out there laughing. We got the music going. We're puffing on a couple joints. Like, I'm just chilling. Like, I was so, like, just relaxed. But like I told you, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was going to get, when I went to the comedy show to see Dave Attell and thought he was in a TV screen when I was sitting 3 rows up back. And, like, just weird things like that. So I didn't know what to expect. But I was just, like, very relaxed. And then even when I got home, I'll crash. I'll take a little power nap quick, or just be going to bed early because I'm shot. I went home. I mowed the lawn. I did some yard work, hung out with the little one for a little while. Like, I was good to go. Like, did the podcast at night. Like, I had the whole energy flow for me for that day was at a different level. And especially for me, because I normally get up at 3 a.m. to go to work for 4 a.m. So, like, any extra boost of energy I can get, I need, kind of thing. So I felt that throughout the day, and I was like, wow. It was even like 10 o'clock at night, and I was like, all right, I got to get to bed. And I was like, still, like, I could still tell, like, I felt good. Like, it was, there was a different feeling I had going on that I wasn't accustomed to, which was different. Because, like, a lot of times, too, I'll be honest, like, when I do certain times, if I take gummies or something like that, they don't really necessarily affect me. So I was like, oh, is this going to be the same kind of thing? But like I said, I didn't know if I was going to start seeing, the waves and the trails and all that, but it was just a relaxed feeling. It was different. I enjoyed it. I truly did enjoy it. It was different.
Good. It'd be interesting to have you do another performance dose day and not smoke weed.
Okay.
See, just I think even from your audience standpoint, to see like, oh, this is me on a microdose and smoking weed. This is me on a microdose. This is me just on weed. Just to kind of get like the comparison to kind of.
I'd be curious to try it.
I'm not microdosing, performance dosing is a little bit different. It's kind of just becomes part of your lifestyle. So if you smoke some weed or something else, but especially if I recreate with mushrooms, if I take like a gram or a gram and a half and hit like a cruising altitude, I never really like to mix. I like to let the mushrooms kind of do their thing.
Right.
So it'd be interesting. But yeah, it's good to hear. I mean, you were joyful and present and had a little more energy and didn't necessarily play. I think microdosing for golf. Well, first off, golf it's such a challenging game because, especially as a man, and like a barbarian, you want to hit things as hard as you can.
As hard as I can, man. That's my problem.
Just like
I'm trying to kill the ball off the tee. I'm
like,
snapping it or slicing it. I'm like, oh man.
Right. This all the subtlety and the restraint and the discipline. It's so. I mean, like, I'll take a performance dose and get out on the mountain bike. And, you just you go, man, you pound,
Right,
it's great, or you go to the gym and you grind, you pound, or you're doing jujitsu, you're flowing. So, I just want to put the caveat out there. The performance dose with golf is probably like a whole other kind of category, a whole other animal,
Right. It was a good time though. I mean, like I said, we're literally walking. I said it to JR. We're walking off the green on the 12th hole, and I'm like, Jake, would you think that I'm having the worst round of the year? Because some of the guys, if they're out there, they're playing bad. You can see their body language, everything. And I'm like, I'm a pretty chill dude as it is, but like I was really just like kicking it, like having a great time, like just enjoying the beautiful sunny day that we're running out of here in upstate New York.
Were you Was that the Crispins, the mountain course?
No, that's our local. That's our local course.
Oh, you're on your local course. Okay.
Yeah, Freer Park, beautiful course up there.
It was, did you get to play the course in Wyndham?
I didn't. No, I had a meeting at work that it went a little longer than and I had to get. It was like an hour and 20-minute drive. I wasn't going to make. I would have literally got out of the car and probably met him on the third hole.
Yeah.
So to drive that far, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
The one question I did have to you, I know you said you dealt with a lot of athletes. I was wondering if you see anything with like guys who you think are like, CTE is a big factor in like contact sports nowadays with football, and you obviously had a football background and the MMA and stuff like that. Have you dealt with any patients, clients, and with like CTE type symptoms?
Dozens. I have a very close friend and former business partner from Northern California who was a incredible amateur boxer, kept breaking his hands or he would have gone pro and probably had quite a career. And then he got very into jiu-jitsu and MMA. He was a little older, so he didn't fight, but he became a trainer. And but he's an animal. He's a beast. He trains hard. He has terrible tinnitus, the ringing in the ear.
Yeah.
And after 3 days of microdosing, his ear ringing went away. And it does so much to down-regulate his aggression, which is part of one of the things of CTE. I've got a couple ex-NFL guys who are good dad buddies of mine. They comment to me how they feel a certain level of neurogenesis. They feel their brain kind of coming back and helps with their mood. Definitely diminishes anxiety and irritability, diminishes like kind of rage. There's a lot of good science that's coming out on that. You can go, Stamets has his lectures. Another one of the OGs in the space is Dr. James Fadiman, Fadiman. You can go just search around on Spotify. You'll find some podcasts. The Dell Center for Psychedelic Research and Therapeutics here at the University of Texas has done some lectures. And there's a lot of evidence about how it can help repair the brain. We've found... This is like wildly changing subjects, but I'm not making any claims, but I've had a couple clients who we think were vaccine injured and had strokes, and they've experienced 30-40% neurological repair and return of functionality since they've started microdosing. So, and this is what I always tell people, like, I'm not the science guy, like go to the science guy. I'm the guy who's had the 2,500 conversations and can tell you, oh yeah, I had a client and I had a client with this and client with that. And I've seen time and time again, return of neurological functioning and a higher level of neurological well-being through the use of, my products or just psilocybin and microdosing in general. Yeah. Right. It's quite common.
You may not be the science guy, but you're the experience guy. And a lot of times experience is more valuable than a lot of things because you've seen so many, like a doctor, like they've had the 20-year doctor, he's had experience because he's seen so many different things that a surgeon or whatever, you know what I mean? It's just the same thing kind of thing. You've been through it all. There's so many different variants, 2,500 people. There's a lot of different circumstances that you came across that you probably came across multiple times that you see the same trends.
There's something really interesting too. So if somebody out there is microdosing and they're not responding and they're not on an antidepressant, so that's 1 out of 100 is going to be very resistant to psilocybin. Interestingly enough, they're almost always a redhead. There's just something about gingers. They feel pain differently. They have much higher levels of alcohol tolerance. Have you ever gotten like stoned with like somebody who can really smoke who's a redhead, who's a ginger?
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy, dude. Like
You're right.
they're just wired. So I
That's so
will have,
funny. One of my coworkers is probably the biggest stoner I know, and he's a ginger. Yeah,
and he can smoke it under the table, right?
yeah. He just keeps
Yeah,
going.
it's crazy. I found this like, and it was funny because I had a client recently say to me who was not responding great to microdosing, and he's like, I'm a ginger. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I started to think about all the clients I've had who have. So if I have 100 clients and we rule out people that you're not on antidepressant, 1 out of 100 is going to be very resistant to psilocybin. Not emotionally resistant, but they just aren't responding. But there's interesting. If that person does, you don't even have to do like a heroic dose. If that person does like a recreational dose, 1 to 2 grams, there's something about that where it's enough psilocybin to burst through and to turn on the brain receptors. So then they become responsive to microdosing. So it's one of the problem solves that we discovered. If you're fairly healthy, you don't think you're neurotoxic, you're not an antidepressant, but you're not responding to microdosing. If you get the opportunity safely, okay, mindfully, give yourself like a 1 to 2 gram dose. Have a mild psychedelic experience, and 90% of the time, it turns those psilocybin receptors onto the brain, and then you can go back and microdose.
Yep, hit that switch in the brain there and wake it back up. That's all.
Yep. It's interesting. Yep.
With a shock to the system, pretty much. And really interesting conversation, and this has been really cool. I think I don't know if I have any more questions for you, man. I'm really excited to try. So, all right, here's my question. Next time
I
go
want to be sure. Let's remember. I have a discount code for your listeners.
Oh,
so we'll give.
That's right.
We'll do PPP. So pitch putt puff. So PPP 15.
PPP 15. Awesome.
PPP 15. Let's put in notes, and they'll get a 15% discount.
Awesome. 15% off. Appreciate that. We'll put that in the description below. So now for like my next, like not necessarily even on a golf day. Say like, all right, I'm going on vacation this upcoming week. I'm going to be sitting on the beach. What should I take to have a nice, relaxing day on the beach?
So, are you going to have your child with you?
Yeah, yep. I'll have wife and I'll be with the in-laws too. So I need like a nice.
Okay, there you go.
Dose
So yeah. So, I mean, Black Stack is the one product that can kind of get a little bit into the rec level. I mean, Brain Supreme is really a microdosing company, but if you took somewhere around 5 to maybe 600 or 700 milligrams.
Okay.
So if you took like 2 Genius and 2 Black Stack, or 2 Genius and 1 Black Stack, somewhere between 500 to maybe 700 milligrams, you kind of hit cruising altitude. And you're not going to go off, but you'll have some visual acuity, some oral acuity. You might find yourself to be really like sweet and loving and enjoying the day, and cloud features, nature features. You look at them, they'll kind of take your breath away. Nice. My wife and I did a recreational dose this weekend at 750 milligrams, and it was so nice. I knew we were going to do it, so I took 3 days off from microdosing. Yeah. And I mean, we laughed. It was so great. And this amazing thing happens when I do like a little bit of a recreational dose is, do you remember that, like, you remember that feeling like when you were like young and you were kind of had a girlfriend and you were in love, and you'd look at them sometimes, like maybe on a nice beach day or something like that, and you'd be like, does this person love me as much as I love them? Are they as into me as I am to them? And you've been married. I've been with my wife since 2002. We've been married since 2007. And I looked over at her, and the wind's blowing in her hair, and she's just looking at these amazing Central Texas clouds, and the western sun was hitting in through them, and I was like, I wonder if she loves me as much as I love her.
Right. Yeah.
And it was like I was like, the subtle insecurity was like so delicious, it was like it evoked like this really like 18, 19-year-old sensation and emotion, and I was like so enjoying being in that emotional state. And then we came home and we did the sauna and the cold plunge, and we watched the Weird Al Yankovic movie, which the first 2/3 of it, like Hollywood does, they always go too fucking far. But the first half of it, the first 2/3 of it were just hilarious, like laughing And then I woke up at 6 a.m. I did 45 minutes of prayer and meditation. I cleaned the whole kitchen. And then I hit a personal best on the Peloton. I won my
There you
group,
go.
and I breathe only through the nose when I exercise. So, I hit a 20-minute Peloton group. There was 38 people in the group. I won the whole thing. Big deal,
Nice.
whatever. But it was a personal best. I mean,
Yeah.
would you ever have done that after 4 or 5 beers or glasses of wine?
No, absolutely not.
There's just no way. So
Absolutely
even from a recreational standpoint, they're and then most people know the benefits at the therapeutic level, but that really should be done responsibly, and you should consider doing it in a retreat setting or with a therapist. You just have to be really honest with yourself if you're going to do a therapeutic dose, like how much shit do I have going on in there? Because if it gets unpacked and you're on your own and you're not supported, it could still be a beneficial experience, but it might not be pleasant.
Right. If you're not in the right environment, like I had like a buddy of mine, he took some shrooms one day. He didn't take the Mike Tyson dose where it's, handfuls and quarter ounces in a handful. He took, I don't know, he took a heroic dose, a little bit of a heroic dose, but his girlfriend started messing with him. And it was like, the cops are coming and this and that. And like, it got him in such a bad mental state that he's like, I was talking about you coming on and stuff. He's like, dude, I don't ever want to do and I was like, listen to the podcast. I go, this is a totally different aspect of compared to what you did. I was like, but he was also in the wrong environment. And then my buddy Anthony
it doesn't sound like it's a great relationship either. I mean, that's
pretty toxic.
That's kind of a tell right there, man.
Right. He definitely didn't have the same feeling you did when you were looking at your wife in the Texas sunset, though. But my buddy Anthony, who microdoses quite a bit, he's always saying how much better his speech is. Like he likes to do it before a podcast, and he always like gets rid of the ums and ahs. He thinks he does. Gets rid of the ums and ahs and all that. And he's like, it makes my head's clearer. I'm more focused. I don't feel like I'm stuttering. And like certain things I noticed that he's doing a little bit more focused. Also, sometimes I think he might do a little bit too much and get a little carried away. So like, I think something like this is going to be real beneficial for him because he can control what he's taking now as well.
Yeah. Great.
For sure. But Adam, man, I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Roger. Great conversation. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, man. So, the knowledge is cool.
brainsupreme.co, brainsupreme.co. There's also microdosecoach.co. And then for your listeners, for the next, when's this going to air, do you think?
I'm going to drop this on Thursday.
Okay. So starting on Thursday, and we'll go for a solid 2 weeks, we'll do a 15% discount for 2 weeks for your listeners, PPP 15.
Awesome.
And we'll hook them up. And I'm very good about responding to questions and emails. People can reach me through the website. I reply to everything using voice to text. So I have this little statement at the end. So basically, I reply. I take personal pride in replying quickly and thoroughly. But in order to do that, I have to do voice to text. So there might be some grammar and spelling and malapropisms and so forth. So just roll with it. But I'm there to answer questions. And I love what I do. I'm deeply committed to it. And within reason, I'll spend as much time as I can with clients and customers and answer questions and help them out.
Yeah, you can truly tell you love what you do and you're passionate about it just because the amount of knowledge you have about it, and you can tell you truly care about your patients and clients as well, which is cool.
Great.
Is really cool.
Thanks a lot.
Do you have an Instagram?
Yes, it's Brain Supreme. We've got Brain Supreme Instagram, Brain Supreme Twitter, Brain Supreme Telegram. Awesome. We have a YouTube channel that we're launching soon. Honestly, I'm shit on all that. I got a guy in India who's helping me, and then I have a new marketing guy that I brought on who's helping me. But I'm fucking old school, dude. Like I like to talk to people.
I hear you. It's always good though. Instagram's always good just because there's a lot of eyes
it's great. It's great, and I've got people who are going to start pumping it up and so forth.
Nice.
My main thing is the podcasts. That for me is the biggest bang for the buck. I can get out there, hit a couple hundred to a couple thousand people. The conversion rates are great. The Sam Tripoli podcast. Like we did 900 sales off that podcast, and I got hundreds of emails and positive reviews. So it's terrific from that, and you connect with people all over the world. So it's been that's great. So I'll like our company strategy is let's push the podcasts, and then we're going to start to build more on the social media and the marketing side and so forth.
Awesome. All right, guys, make sure
thank
you
you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Make sure you guys go check out brainsupreme.co. You're getting ready to get into some next level shit. Appreciate everybody tuning in to the Pitch Putt and Puff. Adam, appreciate your time, and we'll talk soon. Later.
Thank you again.
Wow, what an episode there with Adam. There was a lot of information. He's definitely he knows his shit. It's a different, it's something that's starting to make its way into the golf game, the microdose, and I hear a lot about it. Cool little topic. I wanted to get you guys as much information as possible on. I listened to Adam on Tinfoil Hat, was really impressed with the interview. When XG reached out to me with the opportunity, it was something I figured would be a good listen for everybody. Guys, go check out Brain Supreme. Brain Supreme, promo code PPP15. Take advantage of this opportunity. Get yourself 15% off. Also, don't forget, we got Trouble Off the Tee, troubleoffthetea.com. Make sure you go check out the book. Troubleoffthetea.com, you got 15% off site-wide, promo code RGB. And then buy one, get one free on the polos with promo code PUFF. And then we got 420 Bliss, 740 Hoosick Road, Troy, New York. Make sure you stop in there, check them out, and grab yourself a nice jaunty product, like maybe something like the all-in-one vape cartridge. And then you got golfercbd.com. Make sure you guys check out golfercbd.com, promo code PPP10 to save yourself 10% at checkout. They got the topicals. Really, the topicals are where it's at. Truly a game changer with their patented delivery technology. Their strokes ahead of the competition, delivering 10 times more CBD directly to the muscles and joints than your traditional balms and creams. The Golfer CBD topicals are easy to apply on the course, absorb quickly, you do not leave any sticky residue. Go check out golfercbd.com, promo code PPP10 to save yourself 10%. And then last but not least, we got 52 Sundays, promo code LGC15 for 15% off site-wide. But yeah, boys and girls and listeners, go check out Brain Supreme. Get yourself some genius. Try the microdose. Hear good things about it. Let's see what it's all about. Make sure you guys check them out. Next level shit at Brain Supreme. We'll be back tomorrow with a preview show of this upcoming weekend of the Pitch, Putt, and Puff. Later.